Following the turbulent early years of the 20th century with its two world wars, the Prohibition era, the Great Depression, and more, America's first taste of relative peace and prosperity in the late 1940s and early 1950s was a time of massive social change. Suburbia dominated American culture, and with the economy booming, technology was focused on making home life more attractive for the idealized nuclear family. One such technology, the cathode ray television set, would come to be the bane of Hollywood filmmakers, and while much of the rest of the country was entering a new golden age, Hollywood was leaving an old one behind. The Supreme Court's landmark 1948 United States v. Paramount decision effectively broke the big studio monopoly on distribution, and thus marked the end of the studio era. And then the McCarthyism of the early Cold War tied Hollywood's hands even further, resulting in the infamous blacklisting of large swaths of creative talent both in front of and behind the camera. While Hollywood wasn't exactly doomed, the big studios felt an existential threat unlike anything since the dawning of sound, and competition under a new landscape of independent theater chains and less restrictive talent contracts meant that even without the TV offering a cheap alternative that allowed busy households to stay at home instead of going to the movies, the entire industry needed to adapt if it was going to survive. Thus began the rise of the B-picture, independent filmmaking, more diverse genre entertainment, and 3D movies. Where the major studios saw a crumbling empire, others saw opportunity to innovate and entertain in new and exciting ways. And it is then that William Castle emerged onto the scene.
Eccentric millionaire Frederick Lauren is offering 5 hand-picked guests the opportunity to earn $10,000, and all they have to do is spend one night in a supposedly haunted house where the steel doors are locked from the outside, the windows are firmly bolted and barred, and there is no contact with the outside world. The only thing that is known for certain is that before the night is over, there will be a body count. Now it is your turn to accept the invitation and witness the terror of the house on Haunted Hill.
After the million-dollar success of its first picture, 1958's Macabre, the independent production house founded by producer-director William Castle and writer Rob White, originally called Cecina Productions but better known under the name William Castle Productions, immediately began work on the next 4 entries in its announced 5-picture slate, the first of which would be based on an original screenplay by White called House on Haunted Hill. Allied Artists, which had distributed Macabre and greenlit its unique gimmick of a $1,000 insurance contract given to theatergoers in case they died of fright, eagerly agreed to distribute another movie along with another, more ambitious gimmick, something called Emergo that I'll talk about later. Over coffee and pie at a local diner, Castle met with Vincent Price to talk about a movie role Price had allegedly been passed over for. At this point in his career, with House of Wax in his rearview mirror and with The Fly just hitting theaters, Price was learning to embrace his status as a horror icon, despite his initial distaste for the genre. As William Castle started outlining House on Haunted Hill to him, he became intrigued enough to agree to appear in 2 William Castle movies in 1959, the other being The Tingler, which I've already covered on my channel. Though it can't be proven to be true, I think it's safe to assume this was Castle's plan all along, as both movies are showcases for Vincent Price that probably wouldn't have worked without him. In House on Haunted Hill, Price plays the morally dubious eccentric millionaire Frederick Lauren. This is peak Price, as he gets to be a devious showman for his guests and a threatening menace to his wife behind closed doors. He is never portrayed as a hero or even as a terribly redeemable figure, and yet it's hard not to root for him as the plot unfolds. As for Annabelle Lauren, she is played by Carol Omert, an actress who, after failing to live up to Paramount's lofty ambitions to make her a female Brando in The Scarlet Hour, was becoming a regular feature of crime dramas and horror pictures. Those who worked with her considered her an unsung actress with immense talent, and it shows in House on Haunted Hill, as she easily stands toe-to-toe with Vincent Price as the film's central antagonist. The greatly overshadowed protagonists, though, Lance Schroeder and Nora Manning, are played by Richard Long of Ma and Pa Kettle fame and a 23-year-old pregnant Carolyn Craig. The owner of the titular abode, Watson Pritchard, is played by well-known character actor Elisha Cook, whose previous credits include the film noir classics The Maltese Falcon and The Big Sleep. Julie Mitchum, sister of Robert Mitchum, plays Ruth Bridgers in what would prove to be the actress's final film role, and the prolific Australian-born Alan Marshall plays Dr. Trent. Finally, according to the film's closing credits, the skeleton plays himself. Filming took place in less than 2 weeks in September of 1958. The exterior of the house is actually the Frank Lloyd Wright designed Ennis House in LA, while the interiors were all done on sound stages. Its initial test screening went terribly, but once Castle made sure to fill the audience with younger moviegoers, future test screenings were far more successful. Castle, ever the showman, emphasized the Emergo gimmick, which was basically just a simple pulley system that allows a prop skeleton to float over the audience, and pushed the boundaries of good taste with a one-sheet poster that was nearly rejected for its graphic imagery of a skeleton hanging a woman in a nightdress while Price holds a severed head in the corner. The topic of today's video was voted on by my Patreon members, and I'd like to give a special shout out to my top tier androids: Batty Bat Firebrand, Chuck Poor, Diane McGill Davis, Giffen Chumley, John Burrell, Mike O'Connor, Numinous 2019, Robert McGill, Scott Johnner, Sean Vale, Spoats, TB Schrumick, and Warren Davis. Thank you to my other patrons and channel members as well. Your support goes a long way to making this channel thrive. Now then, let's get back to the subject at hand. When it released in February of 1959, House on Haunted Hill was an enormous success, earning as much as $2.5 million against its budget of $200,000. The Emergo gimmick was popular at the start, but over time it started to become a liability as young audiences would come prepared with slingshots and items to throw at the apparition once it appeared. As such, Emergo didn't last particularly long, but the movie continued to succeed even without it. Though his previous film Macabre had earned William Castle a reputation, House on Haunted Hill made him famous, which he would capitalize on with other spooky spectacle hits like The Tingler and 13 Ghosts. A remake was released in 1999 that had its own direct-to-video sequel 8 years later, and there has been relatively recent talk of another remake and a prequel in the works, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Still, House on Haunted Hill maintains a strong cult following and is often subject to modern-day screenings, some even replete with an Emergo skeleton, along with frequent showings on TCM and other broadcast channels around the world. Part of this is due to the film's public domain status, although that does have its own drawbacks as most prints are copies of pretty low quality, and there are multiple versions with multiple edits floating around out there. Unfortunately, the highest quality version, which I had originally intended to use for this video, is currently unavailable online because of the Internet Archive's ongoing legal troubles. Still, if you don't mind compression artifacts and questionable audio mixing, you can easily find the entire film here on YouTube. And make no mistakes, you should absolutely watch it this Halloween, especially if you've never seen it before. It's one of my absolute favorite haunted house movies, alongside the many great versions of the confusingly similar named The Haunting of Hill House. Yes, I mix them up all the time too, even though at their cores they are very, very different stories. House on Haunted Hill is really a proto-Clue style whodunit, merely disguised as a haunted house movie. Sure, there is enough ambiguity about things like the dripping blood to conclude that there are ghosts on the loose, but at the end of the day, spoiler alert, this is just a movie about the most dysfunctional serial marriage since Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. It's also far better as a film than it has any right to be. William Castle has a reputation for being a master of schlock, but House on Haunted Hill is far less exploitative than you might expect, far more serious than his other famous films. Vincent Price is certainly hemming it up in places, but his acting is surprisingly genuine and nuanced, and some of the cinematography is exceptional, even if the sets are extremely limiting. It's a classic, not just in horror but in general, and it's probably the best movie William Castle ever made. And that's all for today, my dear mortals. What's your favorite haunted house movie? Let me know in the comments, and while you're there, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Thank you for watching, and until next time when we'll hang out in the wasteland with man's best friend, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love. As long as you're not trying to murder your spouse in a haunted mansion.
Remember the fun we had when you poisoned me?
Something you ate, the doctor said.
Yes. Arsenic on the rocks.